30 most foolish vintage car prototypes that should never have been created. The 20th century was an era of outlandish concepts and daring experiments in the automobile manufacturing world. Have you ever imagined that a vehicle could resemble a snail, a portable bathtub, or even a giant consuming another automobile? Or a vehicle that could be fitted with a miniature nuclear reactor right in its cargo area? Today, let's revisit some of the most absurd car designs that you probably wouldn't want to see cruising down the roads at all. Aurora 1, 1957. This automobile was born from the enthusiasm of Reverend Alfred Giuliano, a clergyman who transitioned to car engineering with no other objective than to develop a completely crash-proof vehicle. That vision was commendable, but the outcome was a monstrous, bulky giant with an appearance that perhaps only its designer could genuinely appreciate. The Aurora was fitted with numerous forward-thinking safety provisions far beyond what the engineering of that period could envision. It featured a heavily cushioned dashboard, robust seat restraints, a solid roll cage, side collision bars, and even a collapsible steering column to reduce injury. However, all those progressive safety provisions came at the expense of an exceptionally unattractive appearance and virtually zero functionality. The front section of the vehicle was strangely oversized, originally meant to safely elevate pedestrians in the event of a collision, or perhaps to simply frighten them into fleeing the opposite direction. Its bubble configuration gave the vehicle the aerodynamics of a brick, completely inappropriate for street travel. Only one prototype of the Aurora was manufactured, and it rapidly disappeared into obscurity, serving as a reminder that sometimes even the finest concepts need sensible implementation. Nissan S-Cargo. Envision a vehicle whose designation says it all, escargot, a play on the French term for snail. And faithful to its designation, this vehicle was genuinely engineered to resemble exactly like a snail. The S-Cargo was part of Nissan's peculiar Pike Factory collection, a lineup of retro automobiles inspired by vintage designs, but characterized by their unconventionality. This vehicle was a perplexing combination of a delivery van and some cartoon figure with a body that was both angular and oddly rounded. It appeared like a Pixar character dismissed from some animated film. Its diminutive 1.5-liter power plant only made this vehicle slower than most bicycles, completely inappropriate for contemporary urban operation. The S-Cargo styling was so peculiar that even Nissan staff probably questioned their career decisions when this product emerged. Dymaxion car, 1933. This masterpiece was the creation of Buckminster Fuller, an ambitious innovator. The Dymaxion car was envisioned as the future of mobility, a teardrop-configured three-wheeler guided by its rear wheel, appearing more like a submarine on roller skates than a conventional automobile. The Dymaxion's objectives were genuinely ambitious. It promised comfortable accommodation for 11 passengers, remarkable fuel economy, and even possessed the capacity for vertical takeoff. That's correct. The inventor even intended for this vehicle to have vertical takeoff and landing abilities. However, in actuality, the Dymaxion was a nightmare on the street. With only one wheel at the rear for guidance, the vehicle veered like an intoxicated shopping cart, making it a veritable death trap in traffic. It couldn't even navigate a sharp turn without creating danger. The Dymaxion car, despite its grand aspirations, is a prime illustration of a concept that was ahead of its era, but failed terribly in implementation and functionality. Ferrari 512 S Modulo, 1970. Ferrari, a brand renowned for powerful and elegant sports automobiles, occasionally has its moments of straying off track. The Ferrari 512 S Modulo 1970 is a prime illustration of that deviation. Engineered by the celebrated Pininfarina, the Modulo was a futuristic wedge-configured design that appeared exactly like an extraterrestrial spacecraft with an ultra-low body, Lower than your typical coffee table, a bubble-like glass canopy that slid forward instead of traditional doors, and concealed wheels for enhanced aerodynamics. This vehicle sounds remarkably impressive. However, the primary difficulty was that it scarcely functioned as a normal automobile. The exceptionally low body made any speed bump its primary adversary, threatening to damage the underside. Concealed wheels meant you couldn't operate properly without scraping everything nearby. And what's worse, despite being fitted with a substantial V12 power plant, it had virtually no ventilation mechanism, meaning the engine would overheat almost immediately if pushed too vigorously. Lancia Stratos HF0. This wedge-configured prototype appeared like a spacecraft and was engineered purely for shock impact. The Lancia Stratos HF0 was a mere 33 inches tall, which is shorter than most people's waist and even shorter than some standard go-karts. The most distinctive thing was that it had no doors or roof. Instead, the entire windshield would flip upward like a fighter jet cockpit, and you had to slide your feet in as if you were crawling into a high-tech casket. Visibility from inside this vehicle was exceptionally poor, and the cabin capacity was so confined it could be compared to a glove compartment. With the steering wheel almost contacting the windshield, operating the Stratos HF0 was like attempting to control a vehicle from inside a shoebox. Although never mass-manufactured, the Lancia Stratos HF0 was a bold design experiment, and some of its styling elements were incorporated into the actual Lancia Stratos, a vehicle that later dominated rally racing. Have you ever witnessed a car design so unusual that it made you question reality? Share your experience in the comments. Cadillac Cimarron. In the early 80s, Cadillac made one of the poorest brand choices in automotive chronicles. They took an inexpensive Chevy Cavalier compact, applied a little leather on the seats, attached a Cadillac emblem, and proclaimed it a luxury automobile. The Cimarron was so mediocre that it nearly completely destroyed Cadillac's standing. Although promoted as a European-style luxury sports sedan, the Cimarron was not luxurious whatsoever. Beneath its superficial Cadillac branding, it was still just a Chevy with a feeble 88-horsepower four-cylinder power plant, making it slower than some minivans. This was Detroit's first endeavor to develop a European-style luxury sports sedan, but the initial version came with more shortcomings than commitments. Walter C. Jerome Survival Car, 1958. This vehicle was the creation of Walter C. Jerome, and it was anticipated to become the ultimate crash-proof automobile. Jerome had the correct concept. At the time, automobiles were like mobile metal containers without seat restraints or any safety provisions. He engineered the front engine section to be completely isolated from the passenger cabin to shield occupants from the engine crushing into the front seats in a head-on collision. However, the execution of this concept was completely absurd. The driver's seat was not in the main body. Instead, it was positioned in a rotating turret mounted above the power plant. The driver sat in their own small section, completely isolated from passengers. As you might anticipate, the survival car never advanced past the prototype phase. Only one was constructed, and it rapidly disappeared into obscurity, but not without leaving its mark as one of the most unusual safety automobiles ever conceived. Briggs & Stratton Hybrid, 1980. What occurs when a company renowned for lawnmower engines chooses to construct a hybrid automobile? You get the Briggs & Stratton Hybrid in 1980, a vehicle so peculiar it felt like someone attached a lawnmower to a science experiment. This quirky automobile was a six-wheeled hybrid powered by a combination of a tiny 694 cubic centimeters two-stroke lawnmower power plant and an electric motor. In theory, it was supposed to be fuel economical and environmentally conscious, but in actuality, it was a mobile engineering catastrophe. First, the six-wheel arrangement made absolutely no sense. Two of those wheels didn't even provide traction. They were just there for stability. And then there was the capability, or rather the absence thereof. The gasoline power plant only generated 18 horsepower, meaning this vehicle's maximum speed was somewhere between a slow stroll and a gentle breeze. AMC Gremlin. Occasionally, a vehicle's designation tells you everything you need to comprehend, and for the AMC Gremlin, that's certainly accurate. What occurs when AMC, the company behind the bubble-shaped pacer, had another brilliant concept in the 70s? They took a standard sedan, severed off the rear, and called it a compact automobile. That's literally how the Gremlin was engineered. Instead of developing a brand new vehicle from the ground up, AMC took their existing Hornet sedan, removed the trunk, and called it Complete. The Gremlin was supposed to rival European compacts, but it was unbalanced, clumsily engineered, and constructed like a tin can. To make circumstances worse, AMC even provided a V8 power plant option, which gave it abundant power, but no method to manage it. So, you'd have a small, short wheelbase vehicle that was very susceptible to spinning out of control. Buick Centurion, 1956. Buick had some fairly wild concepts in the 1950s, but nothing was as preposterous as the 1956 Centurion. On the surface, this vehicle appeared remarkable. A sleek jet-age coupe with a wraparound windshield, a bubble top, and aircraft-inspired styling. But then, Buick chose to go one step too extreme by completely eliminating rear-view mirrors and replacing them with a rear-mounted camera. That's correct. Decades before modern rear-view cameras existed, Buick thought positioning a small TV screen inside a vehicle in the 50s was a brilliant concept. Except, naturally, it wasn't. The engineering at the time was primitive, unreliable, and completely unnecessary for a vehicle that had windows. Anyway, among these peculiar designs, which vehicle made you exclaim, "Who conceived of this?" Share your thoughts. Ford Nucleon, 1958. In the 1950s, people were obsessed with the notion that nuclear power was the solution to everything: nuclear energy, nuclear aircraft, and yes, nuclear automobiles. The concept was to position a reactor on wheels and call it Complete. The Ford Nucleon 1958 was a concept vehicle powered by an actual nuclear reactor. Ford envisioned a future where you could operate 5,000 miles on a single nuclear charge. This sounds remarkable until you realize you'd be operating around with a miniature Chernobyl strapped to your cargo area. Fortunately, this vehicle never advanced past the concept phase because, frankly, the world wasn't prepared for everyday operators to casually dispose of nuclear waste in the 1950s. Vector W8. The Vector W8 was anticipated to be America's response to Ferrari and Lamborghini, a jet-inspired supercar capable of defeating all competitors. However, it became one of the most overhyped and underperforming catastrophes in supercar chronicles. The W8 packed serious capability, a monstrous 6.0-liter twin-turbo V8 power plant generating 625 horsepower, capable of achieving 242 miles per hour. But here's the difficulty: it scarcely functioned. Vector was a small enterprise with big aspirations, but virtually no practical experience in mass manufacturing automobiles. This resulted in terrible dependability, nightmare handling, and innumerable electrical difficulties, making it more likely to malfunction than break speed records. The enterprise manufactured fewer than 20 units before going bankrupt. The W8's cabin appeared like something out of an inferior movie. It had a cockpit-style dashboard, a multitude of buttons, and a complex digital instrument cluster, even for the 90s. Vector M12. If the Vector W8 was a failed supercar experiment, then the Vector M12 was an even more embarrassing sequel. After the original Vector enterprise collapsed in the early 90s, it was purchased by an Indonesian enterprise which thought the optimal method to revive the brand was to steal Lamborghini components, combine them with terrible engineering, and hope for the optimal. The outcome was a vehicle that appeared swift but performed like a dying spacecraft. The M12 borrowed its V12 power plant from the Lamborghini Diablo, but instead of transforming it into a genuine supercar, Vector encased it in a bulky, heavier, uglier, and slower fiberglass body than the original Diablo. The M12 suffered from terrible overheating problems, unreliable electrical mechanisms, and a cabin that resembled a rejected arcade game. Only 14 units were manufactured before Vector shut down once again. Bricklin SV1. When an enterprise positions the words safety vehicle in its product designation, you'd think it would at least be safe, but the Bricklin SV1 was not. Engineered by Malcolm Bricklin, this Canadian-made sports automobile was supposed to be a revolutionary blend of speed and safety. It had distinctive gull-wing doors, impact-absorbing bumpers, and a fiberglass body. All sounds remarkable until you realize that this vehicle had zero dependability, terrible construction quality, and a cabin that appeared like a plastic toy. The gull-wing doors were powered by hydraulic motors that constantly malfunctioned. Envision attempting to exit your vehicle and realizing the doors won't open because the hydraulics died. And as for capability, it weighed like a tank, but only had a 175 horsepower V8 power plant. This meant that instead of a sleek, high-performance sports automobile, it operated like a sofa on wheels. DeLorean DMC-12. Let's be frank. The DeLorean DMC-12 is one of the most renowned automobiles of all time, largely thanks to its appearance in the film Back to the Future. But if you strip away that cinematic fame, you're left with a vehicle that didn't really function well. Its stainless steel body appeared impressive, but it was exceptionally difficult to keep clean and made the vehicle heavier than necessary. Under the hood, DeLorean chose to use a 130 horsepower V6 power plant from Renault, Volvo, and Peugeot, meaning it had the power-to-weight ratio of a garden tractor. And let's not forget about the quality control problems. Early models were so poorly constructed that some couldn't even start off the assembly line. Despite its iconic styling and advanced materials, the DMC-12 faced significant criticism for its poor capability and dependability, solidifying its standing as a pioneering but flawed vehicle. If you could travel back in time and witness one of these outlandish prototypes on the street, which one would you select and why? A MC Pacer. If you've ever wondered what it feels like to operate a goldfish bowl, I introduce the AMC Pacer. This vehicle made being spacious an undesirable thing. AMC's concept was straightforward: develop a compact automobile with a substantial cabin. But instead of just making a normal hatchback, they went excessive by engineering a bubble-configured vehicle with insanely oversized windows, making passengers feel like they were trapped inside a giant magnifying glass. The Pacer was promoted as the first wide, small car, a phrase that sounds as contradictory as its implementation. It was too heavy for its dimensions, largely due to all the glass. It was initially supposed to have a rotary power plant, but AMC scrapped that concept at the last minute, leaving it with a weaker inline six-cylinder power plant instead. The Pacer appeared like a melted jelly bean in the sun. And to make circumstances worse, one door was longer than the other for easier rear seat access, making it appear even more unbalanced. BMW Isetta, 1955. The BMW Isetta 1955 is a distinctive chapter in automotive chronicles. This microcar wasn't actually constructed by BMW. It was an Italian microcar that BMW licensed to manufacture to boost sales after World War II. But calling it an automobile is a bit of an exaggeration. It had a 12-horsepower single-cylinder power plant. That's correct, just 12 horsepower. That's about half the capability of a decent lawnmower. And then there's the door. Instead of a conventional side door, the entire front of the vehicle opened up, including the steering wheel. If you parked too close to a wall, congratulations, you were trapped in the vehicle. The Isetta was also nicknamed the bubble car due to its distinctive appearance. With a length of just 2.29 meters and a width of 1.37 meters, the Isetta featured an egg-configured body with bubble-like windows. Inside, the vehicle had a single bench seat comfortably accommodating two people with space behind for a spare wheel or a large luggage shelf. A surprising safety provision was the canvas sunroof, engineered as an escape route in case of a collision. Despite its practical attributes and urban maneuverability, the BMW Isetta divided opinions due to its distinctive appearance, resembling a bug with its rounded configuration and bubble windows. Triumph TR7. British sports automobiles have always been a gamble. Some were remarkable and others were, well, like the Triumph TR7. Triumph promised the TR7 would be the future of British roadsters, but instead it became a case study in how to destroy a car brand. First, its styling was peculiar. The TR7 had a clumsy wedge configuration with a hood that appeared too elongated for its tiny body. But maybe it operated well? Absolutely not. The TR7 was slow, unreliable, and so poorly constructed that it literally fell apart. Its electrical mechanism was dreadful. The power plant constantly overheated, and worst of all, it rusted faster than you could operate it. The Triumph TR7, no matter how promising, could not be salvaged if quality and capability were not guaranteed. Aston Martin Lagonda. Aston Martin is recognized for constructing luxurious, high-performance, and beautiful automobiles. But in 1982, they chose to go into full-blown catastrophe mode with the Lagonda. This was a vehicle so complex that even dealership mechanics couldn't comprehend it. Instead of conventional gauges, Aston Martin chose to use a digital dashboard with touch-sensitive controls. Sounds impressive, correct? Well, in the 1980s, digital dashboards were as unreliable as a paper umbrella. The electrical mechanism constantly failed, and most proprietors couldn't even read the screens because they were too dim. Even the simplest repairs required specialized components, and since virtually nothing functioned properly, you were basically paying a fortune for a vehicle that scarcely functioned. Ford Pinto. The Ford Pinto is one of the biggest catastrophes in American automotive chronicles. Ford's objective was to develop an affordable subcompact automobile to rival the rising wave of Japanese imports. But in their rush to make it as inexpensive as possible, they cut a few corners, and that corner cutting meant they created a potential death trap that could explode. The Pinto's fuel tank was positioned in the worst possible location, right behind the rear bumper, and Ford, knowing this was a substantial safety risk, chose not to fix it because it would cost an extra $11 per vehicle. Instead, they figured it would be more economical to pay out lawsuits than redesign the fuel mechanism. Constructing a foolish vehicle is one thing, but constructing a vehicle that actively attempts to kill you is something else entirely. General Motors LeSabre. In the 1950s, car manufacturers were obsessed with jet-inspired styling, and General Motors took that obsession to a new level with the GM LeSabre, a vehicle that appeared like it should be flying in the sky instead of operating on the street. GM engineers poured every futuristic concept they could think of into this vehicle. It had a wraparound windshield, tail fins, and a front section that resembled a fighter jet intake. Under the hood was a supercharged V8 power plant that could run on both gasoline and methanol because clearly fuel economy wasn't a concern in the 50s. And let's not forget the automatic rain sensor. If it started to rain, the LeSaber's convertible top would close itself. Sounds excellent, except this was 1951, and electrical mechanisms at the time weren't exactly dependable. Marcos Mantis, 1970. You'd think that by the 1970s, sports car enterprises would have figured out what made a desirable automobile: good appearance, excellent handling, and abundant capability. Marcos, an enterprise recognized for constructing quirky but capable British sports automobiles, took a wrong turn in 1970. The Mantis was a substantial, overstyled grand tourer that appeared like a mutant fish on wheels. Capability came from a Triumph inline six-cylinder power plant, which wasn't inferior, except it wasn't swift enough to match the vehicle's aggressive appearance. And that appearance, it had curves in the wrong locations, a peculiar roofline, and simply mismatched proportions. Pontiac Stinger. Pontiac thought the world needed a futuristic convertible off-road vehicle, so they constructed a concept automobile wrapped in bright neon blue and yellow plastic. This Stinger was a new concept in automotive styling art. The seats could be pulled out and used as beach chairs. The sound mechanism was also removable so you could play music outside. It even had a built-in cooler and surfboard storage. Sounds enjoyable, correct? Well, it was too impractical for mass manufacturing. The Stinger was not practical for daily operation, and people who genuinely wanted an off-road vehicle already had Jeeps and other off-road vehicles. So Pontiac left this blindingly yellow catastrophe as a single concept automobile, and the world moved on. Ford GT90. The Ford GT90 sounded like the future of supercars. It had an insane 720 horsepower quad-turbo V12 power plant, a maximum speed of 250 miles per hour, and a styling that appeared genuinely remarkable. Ford constructed the GT90 as a concept automobile, but they hadn't really worked out all the details. The primary difficulty was that its power plant got so hot it could actually melt components of the vehicle. That's correct. It turns out stuffing a quad-turbo V12 power plant under the hood without proper cooling was an inferior concept. Ford never intended to mass manufacture the GT90, but that didn't stop people from requesting one. Unfortunately, it remained a single concept automobile, and Ford abandoned the concept in favor of something a little more practical. Renault Avantime. The Renault Avantime was an endeavor to develop a distinctive and exciting luxury minivan. This is the Renault Avantime, a vehicle that was supposed to be a coupe. Instead of 4 doors like a typical van, it had 2 large, heavy coupe doors, making entry and exit a nightmare. And while most minivans focused on functionality, the Avantime sacrificed all of that for style. In the end, it was too impractical for families, too slow for automobile enthusiasts, and too peculiar for everyone. Nash Rambler, 1950 to 1955. The Nash Rambler is widely acknowledged as America's first successful compact automobile. Developed by Nash Kelvinator Corporation, its styling reflected a peculiar blend of automotive and appliance influences. While Nash engineers focused on technical aspects, the vehicle's styling bore the distinct imprint of Kelvinator's expertise in refrigerators. The Rambler was introduced in 1949, featuring a distinctive bathtub-configured body with enclosed wheels initially used on larger Nash models. However, when adapted for the smaller Rambler, this feature appeared clumsy. The enclosed front wheels and the vehicle's rounded configuration gave it a quirky, almost toy-like appearance, which did not resonate with American consumers accustomed to associating dimensions with status and quality in automobiles. The Rambler carved out a niche as the first successful modern American compact automobile, engineered to be smaller than its contemporaries, yet comfortably accommodating up to 5 passengers. Under the hood, the Rambler boasted a dependable Nash, 172.6 cubic inch six-cylinder power plant, generating 82 horsepower. It rode on a 100-inch wheelbase and provided both manual and automatic transmission alternatives. Studebaker Starlight Coupe, 1947 to 1955. Engineered by Virgil Exner, who previously worked at Raymond Loewy Associates, the Starlight Coupe adopted the pontoon style that became popular after World War II. What made the Starlight Coupe memorable was its unconventional appearance, frequently likened to seeing two automobiles traveling in opposite directions simultaneously. This effect was largely due to its elongated trunk lid resembling a hood reminiscent of an aircraft's nose. However, its most striking feature was its wraparound rear window, a departure from traditional styling norms of the time. Unlike other vehicles with separate side windows, the Starlight Coupe boasted a panoramic effect achieved through 4 fixed glass sections, leading observers to question its direction of travel. Under the hood, the Starlight Coupe rode on a 113-inch wheelbase and was equipped with an L-head inline 6-cylinder power plant generating 85 horsepower at 4,000 RPM. It also featured an innovative Studebaker automatic transmission, ensuring smooth shifts and 4-wheel hydraulic disc brakes for dependable stopping capability. Nash-Healey, 1950 to 1954. The Nash-Healey 1952 was a distinctive collaboration between the American automaker Nash Kelvinator and the British Donald Healey Motor Company. This partnership, which began in 1950 and lasted until 1954, aimed to develop a distinctive luxury sports automobile combining American capability with British craftsmanship. Initially equipped with Nash's Ambassador drivetrain, the Nash-Healey featured a chassis and initial body engineered by Healey. However, its most notable transformation came in 1952 when the renowned Italian designer Battista Pininfarina was brought in to restyle it. Pininfarina's influence on the Nash-Healey's styling was significant, but also controversial. The aluminum-bodied Roadster received a lower one-piece windshield and distinctive rear-wheel arches. However, it was the new grille and headlights that garnered the most attention. Set deep within the front fenders, these features gave the Nash-Healey an unusual appearance, leading some to liken it to a vehicle swallowing another vehicle. Despite its polarizing aesthetics, the Nash-Healey was acknowledged for its track capability, notably winning its class at the prestigious 24 Hours of Le Mans race in 1952 and finishing third overall behind only Ferrari and Talbot. Under the hood, the Nash-Healey boasted 2 power plant alternatives throughout its manufacturing. Earlier models from 1951 to 1952 were equipped with a Nash Dual Jetfire OHV inline 6-cylinder power plant generating 125 horsepower from 234.8 cubic inches. Buick Special, 1954. The 1954 Buick was part of the second generation of Buick's special models, manufactured from 1949 to 1955. During this period, Buick gained acknowledgement for its elegant styling and powerful power plants. Mid-50s Buick models were considered some of General Motors' most beautiful vehicles, featuring distinctive details like stylish portholes on the front fenders and smoothly curved rear-wheel arches. However, the front-end styling of the 1954 models received mixed reviews, frequently criticized for its drooping headlight bezels and a somewhat scowling grille. These elements contributed to a distinctive, if slightly mournful, appearance, leading some to humorously compare the vehicle to Marvin the Paranoid Android from science fiction. Despite criticism of its front-end styling, the Buick Special 1954 had its strengths. It provided a variety of body configurations, including sedans, coupes, and convertibles, catering to different purchaser preferences and needs at the time. Under the hood, it featured a Fireball V8 power plant with a displacement of 264 cubic inches, generating approximately 143 horsepower. This power plant choice provided sufficient capability for locomotion combined with an automatic transmission that enhanced the user-friendly operating experience. Buick reacted rapidly to this feedback. By 1955, the styling of Buick models featured significant improvements, particularly in the front-end styling. Edsel, 1958. Engineered during the mid-1950s, the Edsel 1958 stood out for its controversial appearance, even in a decade recognized for bold styling. Despite the prevailing preference for strong designs, the Edsel faced severe criticism, particularly for its front-end styling. Whether the larger Citation and Corsair models or the smaller Ranger and Pacer variants, all Edsel models featured a distinctive, widely derided vertical front grille and widely spaced headlights. The public compared it to a horse collar, while privately its appearance received even less flattering comparisons. The vehicle's profile, particularly noticeable in the convertible variant, raised eyebrows due to its proportions, fueling speculation about its structural integrity. The Edsel's large, bulging side sections contributed to its distinctive yet cumbersome appearance. Beyond aesthetic problems, the Edsel also faced construction quality difficulties, further contributing to its notoriety. The combination of styling flaws and manufacturing challenges contributed to its rapid decline in popularity. Although providing various power plant alternatives, including a V8 for capability and a more economical six-cylinder variant, the Edsel failed to attract consumers. Ultimately, its manufacturing run lasted only 3 years. Hope you had some interesting moments on this journey. Don't forget to like, share, and subscribe.